Before we begin, remember that these are just predictions based on our analysis of past performance, player stats, and other factors. The beauty of college football is its unpredictability, so take these predictions with a huge grain of salt. Kicking off the season, the Huskers face the Minnesota Golden Gophers on August 31st. The last time these two teams met, it was a tough game for the Huskers. Minnesota will be taking a step back this year by most people's predictions. Nebraska will be taking a step forward this season by most accounts. Last year this was a close game, so if the forecasts for these two teams are correct, then Nebraska takes the win. Game 2 versus Colorado Buffaloes. Next up, the Huskers will take on the Colorado Buffaloes. The Buffaloes are fielding a brand new team this year, which could play to the Huskers' advantage. Our prediction for this game is Nebraska taking the win. Game 3 sees the Huskers facing off against the Illinois Huskies. The Huskies have had their ups and downs, and this game could be a chance for the Huskers to capitalize. Our prediction for this game is Nebraska winning. Game 4 versus Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. Next, the Huskers will be up against the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. The Bulldogs have shown some strong performances in the past, but how will they fare against our Huskers? Nebraska should handle this one fairly well and taking the win. Game 5 is a big one, with the Huskers taking on the Michigan Wolverines. This is always a tough matchup, and this year will be no exception. Nebraska will be rolling at 4-0 but will get smoked here and fall to 4-1. Moving on to Game 6, the Huskers will face the Illinois Fighting Illini. The Illini have been a challenging opponent in the past, but the Huskers might have some tricks up their sleeve. We see this as a toss-up game, but we will put this down as a loss for Nebraska. Game 7 sees the Huskers against the Northwestern Wildcats. The Wildcats have had a mixed record recently, which could play into the Huskers' hands. Our prediction for this game is definitely going to be a win here. Next up, the Huskers will take on the Purdue Boilermakers. The Boilermakers have been a tough opponent in the past, but the Huskers are looking to turn the tide. Nebraska should be able to handle this one and take the win. Game 9 is against the Michigan State Spartans. The Spartans have been a formidable opponent, but the Huskers are ready for the challenge. Not sure what Mel Tucker has going on, but his only good team was 2020, and as we have seen, that season didn't make much sense at all with how teams fared. Nebraska should take the W here. Moving on to Game 10, the Huskers will face the Maryland Terrapins. The Terrapins have had their struggles, which could give the Huskers an edge. This game scares me, and I will go ahead and put this down as a loss for Nebraska. Game 11 sees the Huskers taking on the Wisconsin Badgers. This is always a high-stakes game, and this year is no different. Wisconsin will be taking a step back this year by most people's predictions. Nebraska will be taking a step forward this season by most accounts. Last year this was a close game, so if the forecasts for these two teams are correct, then Nebraska takes the win. And finally, the last game of the regular season will be against the Iowa Hawkeyes. This rivalry game is always a nail-biter, and we expect this year to be no different. Nebraska was, and that's it. Those are our game-by-game predictions for the Nebraska Cornhuskers 2023 season. Overall, we have Nebraska finishing 9-3. Nebraska gets back to winning the minimum 9 games a year, and things are heading in the right direction.